Hi, my name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Museum Open House. This ongoing series features and highlights many of the outstanding museums and other cultural institutions. The main purpose of most programs is to inform viewers about current and upcoming exhibits, various programs, resources, and other opportunities that are available for the general public. Today, via Zoom, we're fortunate to have as our guest local artist Marcia Cooper. Marcia is a longtime member of the Newton art community. Her richly textured oil paintings feature expressive portraits, figures immersed in nature, and vibrant depictions of wildlife that together explore the bonds we form with one another, with our surroundings, and with the moments that stay with us long after they've passed. During the program, Marcia will be informing us about her current exhibit entitled Positive Connections, which is on display at the Newton City Hall first floor gallery throughout the months of May and June. Let's start by meeting Marcia and then finding out all about positive connections. Welcome, Marcia. So delighted to be able to be here.
Thank you, Jay, and I'm delighted to be here too.
And last week, I had the wonderful opportunity to be at Newton City Hall, tour the exhibit, enjoyed it very much, eager to find out more about it and have you inform viewers. But before we jump right to that, I think it would also be of interest if you'd share just briefly a little bit more about your background, perhaps artistic, professional interest, please.
Sure, Jay. So I started painting when I was in college, and I was trained to be an art teacher, and I taught at a private school in Newton for some time. I also studied painting with Arthur Polanski when I was younger at Boston University, and various other talented artists who have some are well known. Evelina Brosgil, Jill Pottle. I don't know if you know them. Their work is
Mhm.
wonderful. Susan Kelly, Roberta Paul, most recently. And I've participated locally in Newton Open Studio shows and member of the Newton Art Association. And I have work in addition to City Hall at a business in an office building near Brandeis University. And I have paintings at Brookline Savings Bank in Newtonville and at the Newt Art Center. So it gives you a little idea of, my experience.
Mhm. Could you share just a little bit? What's your growth and development been like as an artist over the years?
Great question. You know, when I was in college, I went in wanting to be a realistic artist, and the professors really encouraged me to go very abstract,
Hmm.
and and I really shunned realistic art for a period of time, and then I'd just say I had an aha moment when I saw piles of cornflakes in an exhibit in a museum in Boston. And I said, you know, I really enjoy painting figures. And so the painting that's at the Brookline Savings Bank
Hmm.
and is a second go at a painting that superimposes figures, uh, two sets of figures, musicians playing conga drums and whatever,
Hmm.
and dancers. And I felt more satisfaction from that than I appreciate abstract art, but for me, it resonates more if I'm working on figures and landscape.
Nice, nice. Can you walk us through, before we enjoy some of your work, the process of creating a piece, say, from the initial idea, maybe the concept to its completion?
Right. So I not a don't call myself a photographer, but I take pictures
Mhm.
very often with an intent to use it for a future painting. If something appeals to me in the pose of the figure or the mood of the scene, then I take a picture of it and I think this can incorporate. And sometimes I take, for instance, I'll give you an example when we look through the paintings, of how that's applied.
Okay, and the other thing would be interesting to hear is how you approach color. Do you plan your palette and the colors before, or sort of discover as you go with the intent?
Yeah, no, it might be a little like jazz,
Mm,
that I'm improvising as I go along, and I get an impulse. And I think, well, maybe these two colors, and I must have rely on just like when you're a chef and you're putting in, you tend to go for garlic and something else, and you mix it together. So I squeeze out different colors, not a huge amount because I don't want to waste paint. And but I put some paint colors that I traditionally go to. I love blues and green, and I love all the colors. I'm not, and I have to. I've been trying to limit my palette somewhat, just that I because I find the end result is it is appealing, to not be all over the place. So, and I've been painting for so many years that that depends on the subject matter. If it's a beach scene, probably not going to use a lot of black.
hmm
I don't actually use black out of a tube. I use alizarin crimson, and ultramarine blue, and a green to get what looks like a black
mm,
uh, tone, not close to a dark tone, I should say. So, and when I've learned from looking at artists like, let's say, Sargent,
mm,
John Singer Sargent, when you look at the whites in his painting, he's not taking white and painting it on the fabric. He's got other colors in there, or
mm.
even in the tones of the face, there's green in there and blue, and you're not taking the finished colors. There's an underpainting there.
Nice, nice. Well, as I mentioned, we're fortunate to have a selection of images from positive connections. And as we segue to that, can you just share what comes to mind when you title the exhibit Positive Connections?
So, well, I like I have an inner, I think, positivity, and I'll tell you one thing that I was fortunate in the family that I was raised, and I recall that my father had a serious surgery years ago, and when the team of doctors came in to ask him how he was doing, he said to them, "I have a PMA." And they looked blankly at him, and that meant he had a positive mental attitude.
Mm,
And I had, I didn't have trauma, not going, much of any out of the ordinary when I was a kid growing up. And till now, I'm very appreciative of life. And I have wonderful friends, wonderful family, a son and a daughter, and my sister and a husband. Should mention first, he did a great job, really worked hard to hang the paintings at City Hall.
mm,
So anyway, I have fabulous friends from all the of my life, and we keep them, and I treasure those connections, and I think everybody does. When you have close connections that bring you joy. So I just felt like that's something that I kind of enjoy most in my painting, to transfer that feeling that I have,
well,
positivity most of the
no, I
time.
think walking through
Mhm.
the exhibit, that positivity, peacefulness comes through throughout from painting to painting. Really can spend more time than you might think at the exhibit because of those positive feelings and vibes that you get from your work. Why don't we start with the first painting here? And I think you title it Beach Artist. A little bit about the inspiration for this and what went into the process.
Sure. So this painting was based on a photo that I took of a close college friend who's a very talented artist. She lives in New Jersey. And, I think she thought I should title it Left-Handed Artist. the beach. At any rate, we were together with other friends, and she set up her palette and the pad of watercolors, and I thought it made such a beautiful scene that I wanted to, when you have a photograph, it could be in a, it's not, you can frame it and hang it up, but since I love to paint, I decided this is a keeper for painting, and so it was based on the photograph, but do I keep it precisely, what was in the photograph? No. I changed the sky, I changed different things about it.
No, I really appreciate the way you've situated the artist in the whole landscape. Just comes across so well, and the colors work so beautifully with the whole setting there. And to have the palette nearby too, really a wonderful piece here.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it.
And this piece, you really get the sense of what you're after. And before we hear about it, I just have to say, another thing, in addition to your artwork, really enjoyed the succinct titles you give each piece that get to the essence of what you've created. And this one is Wrapped in Warmth.
Right. Now, this was a friend of the artist in the first
Ah,
painting, and she looks so attractive and with the fabric, and so I asked her to pose for some pictures against the dunes at the beach that we were at the Cape. And so, in thinking of the painting, it is a warm painting. Of course, you've got the cool blue in there, but I just felt like, again, kind of comforting that to look at it, for me and for the viewer. And so
no,
it was a fun
no,
painting to work on.
comfort is definitely another word that comes to mind when you go from your painting to painting in the exhibit. And this next one's a lot of fun. I'm curious if the origin, if there is one of the story with swimmer's handstand.
I love the pose and the spirit of it. And I caught this young woman, girl, I don't know who she was. I snapped a picture and I caught that moment. And uh, that's I've done a few. I have another painting that's with handstands. I just recently painted my niece's twin daughters doing handstands. I did a couple little paintings of them doing handstands. So it indicates to me strength
Hmm.
and confidence, and the pose itself. The not just the pose itself. I go for the composition too. So it's that challenge of getting the figures, the subtlety of the curves and whatnot. So that's a little bit about that painting.
No, and again, another wonderful ocean water scene that I begin to understand a little better and appreciate what you were saying earlier about the blending of colors to come across and the way you've created the color of the water there, I think depicts those earlier comments about the mixture.
When you paint a picture like this, if you paint a picture that's really dark, you know, and let's say gory or whatever, you could be releasing the angst that you feel inside, because who doesn't? Even though I'm a positive person, we all feel angst about one thing or another, and worry. But as I said, you know, is that I that you can't think that way when you're looking at the colors that you love and the
Mm.
mood, type of mood that you're capturing in the painting. It just all that is put aside, all the bad stuff in life.
No, and we can definitely these times maybe more than recent past use as much positivity as possible. Um, which brings us to this lovely scene, reminiscing. Again, such a wonderful title. And please say a
Thank
little
you.
bit about the story and the landscape that you've captured, created.
So, thank you. Well, I love beaches in Wellfleet at the Cape because look at that background. It's got the dramatic colors and the shape leading down to the ocean. And my two friends were sitting there talking and catching up, and everything about the mood, was something that I wanted to remember. And not just to put it in an album, with my photographs, but in a painting. And so these are two very dear friends for so many years. And when we are together, it's just laughing together and
Mm.
reminiscing. So that's how that title came about.
They must be thrilled with this piece.
They have, yes, they each have other paintings of mine
Ah.
that I've done. They've been good subject matter for my work.
Nice, nice. And perhaps some other friends are
Oh,
here or friends that you came upon in this piece titled Friends in Beach Chairs.
yeah. This we were at uh, on Nantucket,
Mhm.
and we were so fortunate. We're still all, knock on wood, alive, and everyone, each person has their share of everyone talks about the hip and the shoulder and the knee, whatever. But this is a moment where we were at the beach and just having a good time. And I like the composition. It's like I sometimes think of the old Italian, paintings where one
Mm.
hand, will go this way and it leading to another. And so all the different limbs and everything. So it's not just, thinking of the the mood, but also, where a leg is bent and an arm is leading to and that.
Yeah.
And so compositionally, it was a fun painting to work on.
No, and it's an example of one where I think we, the viewers, can appreciate the scene, put us in that type of scene, maybe not the five cheers together, but in a scene we've definitely been in the past or have enjoyed observing when we happen to be at the beach near the ocean as well. And another terrific one by the ocean that you
Well,
titled Oceanside Reader. How
so I
peaceful
was
and
very
calm
lucky.
is that?
I was very lucky, to get a snapshot of this woman relaxing at the beach in what looks like rocks. People said,
Yeah.
"Are they?" But they had sandy. And she must have been cushioned enough
Mm.
that she was comfortable. So this was out in California near Santa Cruz. I have my daughter lives in California, my sister, and a good friend in Santa Cruz. And so when my husband and I were driving from my sister's place near Palo Alto to Santa Cruz, we pulled off at scenic lookouts. And I was just
Mm.
lucky to be there at the right moment and see this woman relaxing there. Now, I've taken that woman relaxing there and put her in the same pose in a couple of other more surreal paintings that I've done.
Ah.
Sometimes my work gets a little bit surreal in combining different aspects
Mhm.
of a scene or the people. So yeah, she's been represented in a few paintings.
Wonderful, wonderful. And for these next few, we're going to step inside and have to say, might be my best appreciation of a title that you gave this one, Good Listener. What was the inspiration for this wonderful piece of work?
Well, this was a model that I studied in one of the classes that I was in, and she came to my house and posed, and she posed in the classroom and a couple of different times, and she was a really good model. And so, she sat on the couch, and I posed her, and she was very relaxed. And when I looked at the painting and I pondered, what kind, I didn't want to give her name necessarily. I wanted it to speak more generally in the title and what I wanted people to think of, with looking at this painting, and myself included. So I decided to call it a good listener. And don't we all need a good listener?
For
An
sure.
empathetic listener, basically, not just a good listener, but an empathetic listener. I guess I could have added in the word empathetic, and it would have been
No,
interesting to.
I mean, I like good because it
Yeah.
goes beyond maybe pinpointing empathy, perhaps. But you can see her being open, just her looking straight ahead, giving you that full attention and appreciation of
And
whatever it is you
I would
bring
say
up.
probably an air of kindness is what is appealing to
That's
me.
nice. That's nice. That's nice. And there's your wonderful use of blue again, beyond the ocean. That's great. That's great. Another one inside is this piece.
Oh, right. So the artist air was set up. It looks like in my home now that I think of it. With sitting next to an orchid, and she is a peaceful. What is that song? Peaceful way of feeling or something.
Hmm.
Crosby, Stills, and Nash and
Yeah.
Young. That's
Yes.
not the precise title, but she's pensive and feeling I think contented, and the beauty of the orchid next to her, it's like two beauties that I would say. And I
Yeah. No,
guess I used blue, and I just like blue, whether it's in the ocean or she may not have been wearing blue. That's the artistic liberty that you can
of
take.
course. No, and the purple vase is wonderful, and the orchid itself is stunning. Really wonderful piece. This one appropriately titled Strings Attached.
Right. This one has a bit of a story too, that I had been with friends, probably out of towners, because I don't ordinarily go to Newbury Street in Boston. And we walked into a little shop, and the young woman behind the counter, I engaged her in conversation. I'm friendly. And I asked her if she's in school, and she said she attended the Berkeley School of Music. So that led to her posing and playing the violin. So she came to my house, and with another artist or two in my dining room, she sat on the chair and she played the violin. So what's not to like, to start to work on a painting like that? You have the music, and I thought it was like I don't want to say woman playing the violin. I thought strings attached was kind of a fun title for that.
Hmm. Hmm. What do you hope viewers reflect on as they move through the exhibit at City Hall?
So, they might see themselves in it, or not physically necessarily, but emotionally. And, like let's say someone's looking at this. Actually, I was at City Hall a couple of days ago, and a woman came by. She had come to my open studio events,
Hmm.
and she said, "Oh, I really connect with that painting. She has violins, and so for her, I think she's contemplating buying painting. Anyway, besides that, she just feels like, oh, that's my world, and I'm feeling good in it."
Nice, nice. Like to hear in time remaining a few more comments. This one that you've titled Carmelita.
So, one of the friends in the previous picture, she and her husband had a restaurant called Carmelita's Cafe.
Hmm.
And so the model who posed in a group session, I thought she could be Carmelita. And so I don't know her name, but I titled it Carmelita. And so they had that in the restaurant, and as long as the restaurant was open, and then they eventually retired. And there you go with the warm and the cool colors.
Yes, stunning, stunning. The red is fantastic there. What's it like showing your work in the civic space like Newton City Hall?
Well, it's great to get feedback, with people are appreciating it. And Um, when I had a reception at the beginning of the week, there were a couple of young kids there, and they wrote some comments, and I had a little booklet that
Hmm.
they wrote their comments. They're very cute. And so, if people walk by in the public, they're seeing my work, and it's just feels rewarding, to get feedback from other people who may not see my work in the house. I have so much work in the house. A lot of my work is in my basement because I just don't have enough room for it. So it's great to have public venues. I really appreciate that.
Definitely, definitely. And I think they're growing more and more. And I think even this recent change in administration, Newton is going to be doing more and more to emphasize the arts and make more spaces and opportunities for local artists. Very much looking forward to that. We're fortunate one more piece just to hear a few words about it. I'm very intrigued how this one came about.
So this borders in a different territory of paintings that I've worked on. And I have some paintings based on photos taken in museums. This was in the Stanford. Now I'm blanking on the name of it in Palo Alto, University of California in Stanford.
Hmm.
Uh, no, I may have mixed that up, but anyway, in the museum there was a painting. There were two people looking at a sculpture by Dwayne Hansen, and that's the guy on the left. That's a sculpture piece. If you're familiar with the work of Dwayne Hansen, you walk by and you think it's really a person. It's so
Wow.
trippy. Anyway, but next to that was an Alice Neal painting. Now, that's not the painting that she had done because it just had a dark feel to me in her painting. So I sort of took license and I altered the colors in the figure, but trying to capture her style a little bit. And then so there were two people standing there looking at it. And so it's fun. I like to bring humor in sometimes. And it's humorous to me. I mean, most people wouldn't know without the explanation, what is this? But that's the story. And I'm
Yeah,
sticking with
no,
it.
very helpful to get the background information there. Masha, in closing, how can viewers and others perhaps stay in touch, find out more about your work and upcoming future projects?
Oh, well, I have a website, Marcia Cooper Art. And so there are different pages.
Mhm.
And so all these paintings that are in the exhibit are mainly on one page, but I have, some surreal work and watercolors. I've dabbled when I travel, I take watercolors with me. So, and if they want to contact me, would you like me to say my contact email
You
or
can say
not
that,
necessarily?
and we'll put all the information in the closing credits as well. So feel free to say it as we close up, please.
Okay, well, my email is Marcia Cooper, my name, at Comcast.net. The city doesn't allow artists to put prices with the labels. So my paintings are for sale. And for this exhibit, I've put prices on the paintings, trying to keep them as low as possible. Because, when you look at a painting and the frame itself could be $300,
Yeah,
so you're not going to sell it for, less than that, for one thing. But
understand,
I do have a lot
understand.
of work, and I am, even if people don't have the finances to purchase a painting, we can make archival quality prints So
Nice.
if a painting speaks to, I've sold prints of paintings, so we can talk. But anyway,
Wonderful, wonderful. Well,
that's
Marcia, unfortunately, we've come to the end of the program. Want to thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Really enjoyed both the exhibit, Positive Connections, and hearing much more about you as an artist and the background of some of the work that's on display. And mostly encourage our viewers and others to make their way to City Hall through the month of June to enjoy your work that's on exhibit there. And as we close, just want to say continued success with future endeavors.
thank you, Jay. It's been a pure pleasure being interviewed by you and having this kind of an opportunity to talk about my work.
You're
So thank
welcome.
you.
Also want to thank those of you watching for joining us and hope you'll be able to tune in next time.